Does it look like I'm recording, Lynn? Yes, I am. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone in the Rocky Mountain area, time zone and Pacific time zone and Mountain time zone. And good afternoon, everyone on the East Coast and Central time zone. This is Joseph Antel from Heart Sound Recorder and Adjuvant Protocols for Healing. As you know, I have gone down to teaching once a week now, and I teach the Adjuvant Protocols for Healing on the first and third Thursday of the month at this time at 11 o'clock Mountain. And I teach the Heart Sound Recorder interpretation on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month at 8 a.m. Mountain Time. And I wanted to let you know about a couple other events. My colleague, Mark Anderson, is teaching this Saturday. If you haven't signed up for that, please do. And that will be from 9 to 4 with 6 CEU credits. And he's entitled that Non-Nutritive Physiological Remedies Pioneered by Dr. Lee. So he's going to go into products that I often talk about and you've learned about in a greater depth and let you know the history. Basically the core line products, many of the core line products. And this will be in a 2-part series, so you don't want to miss the first one. And it'll be 3 hours of Mark and then 3 hours of Dr. Keppel, how to implement those products into your practice. So please join us for that. The following Saturday is the first online conference on the GAPS diet and the GAPS philosophy and how to use that in your practice and in your life. And that's, of course, with Monica Corrado, our great friend, and who has spoken on these calls and others as well. So that is on this. You should have gotten an email with this and my schedule in these 2 events coming up. Today, Lynn Mayer's going to join me, and we're going to do something that record the 10 primary findings of the Heart Sound Recorder. We have never done this, and I thought we would take advantage of this. Now, some of you don't have a Heart Sound Recorder, others do. Either way, you'll benefit today from this. And these are the basic 10 findings established by Dr. Myron Pexton, who worked with Dr. Lee in the very beginning in the 1930s and early 40s with the interpretation. And then, of course, passed on from Dr. Lee to John Courtney to me and Mark Anderson and others. So I hope you enjoy this today. And we're going to, there's actually 10 basic 5 to 10 minute segments of each. And this is the Heart Sound Recorder, the control unit, the sensor, or what some have called the microphone. It's more of a sensor, and of course the software. So I'm not going to tell you all about the Heart Sound Recorder because I'm sending you the notes on my advanced training that we created many years ago when I was on the road teaching and selling these devices. But we are going to record the 10 findings, as I say. And Lynn has put in the chat box these notes. And if for any reason you have a hard time extracting them, don't worry, just shoot me an email and I'll make sure that you get them. So Lynn, are you on?
Yes.
Great. I'm going to leave a little pause in between everyone, just so you know. So as I said, the heart sound recorder is based on a technology that came out of the 1930s. And it was a way that Dr. Lee felt was of extreme significance, because, Lynn, I'm just going to mute everyone out here, and then you can come back in. Okay. Dr. Lee felt it was of extreme importance to show the practitioner and the client how supplements and nutrients work. You can give someone nutrients and they say they're getting better, and they obviously are getting better, usually very quickly, unless they have, a condition that has been very, very chronic in their life, a health condition. So he felt that the heart, which at that time they didn't realize in the 1930s, but he did, that the heart is the most electrical organ in the body. I guess you could say the most responsive, the most sensitive organ in the body. For decades, it was considered the brain, but not true. The heart is actually the most sensitive. And so by running a graph on each valve of the heart, you are able to determine the outcome of supplements that were recommended. The specific nutrients that were being applied by the practitioner, and in the health of that client. And so Dr. Lee had created the device, the endocardiograph, which was stopped being made. It was not made after the mid-60s, 1960s. So years ago, you all pretty much know this history. A chiropractor, John Reichert, Daryl Prushner, who's an electrical engineer, and I undertook, with Mark Anderson's inspiration, of course, to reverse engineer, to put money into reverse engineering this device. And so the Heart Sound Recorder 2, or the modernized, the digital version of Dr. Lee's original invention, came to be into being. And so when we look at the graphs, there are specific interpretations and then applications of nutrition. And of course, like any modality of observing a client's health and well-being, the healer, the practitioner, needs to know what is normal, what is balanced, what is the true pattern rhythm of that person, whether it's metabolism, digestion, endocrine function, or anything else. But it all can be seen through the heart graphs. And so the number one finding, observational finding, is to know what is balanced, what is true, what is normal. And you could say what is perfect, but what is perfect, to use that word, is a very individual matter. It's to that person. And so the basic premise of the normal pattern is to look at this is a 3-second version of the full 15 seconds that you can get using the Heart Sound Recorder. And so you want to observe what is the true S1 and the true S2 and the ratios. And this is not complicated. The ratios are basically 2-to-1. The second sound should be The first sound should be twice the height of the second. The work to, this is S1, S2, lub, dub, rest. So here's your systolic interval and your diastolic rest period. And that also is 2-to-1. And that's basically all you need to know. Now, each of the valves have a specific meaning if those patterns of 2-to-1 are not right. And I'm going to show you the ones that are off and the ones that are accurate. All of the graphs that you'll see today are real people. None of these have been drawn in, manipulated in any way. They are all real people that over my travels over years across the country, it was hard to find someone with an ideal, for instance, S1. This happens to be a chiropractor in Long Island that I was very surprised and happy to see his heart, to see his mitral valve. So we have based all of these observations, comparisons, and application of nutrition based on this particular ideal graph. So it's important if you're running, by the way, graphs, that we have the blood pressure, the heart rate, and the weight and height of the person, just so you know. Now, you could say, and many of you are probably thinking of this or asking in your own mind, so what do you do if the person is normal, if they're okay? So here is the protocol for that basic prophylactic care for the heart for anyone. And again, any of my protocols are listed in order of importance. So if you're thinking, I just want to use 2 products, here they are: Cardio Plus, 3 twice a day on an empty stomach, by the way. Anything with a protomorphogen in it should be on an empty stomach. And 2 of the new Cataplex B Core. Now, most of you are familiar with the Cataplex B, which we had to use a lot of tablets in dosing, or a fair amount, to get the outcome that we were seeking with that individual, because people are so depleted. And we would get them fairly quickly, within minutes sometimes. You can do a before and after with something like the Cataplex B Core or the old Cataplex B. But this is a greater concentration and a larger tablet. And we returned to Dr. Lee's original formula of the Cataplex B complex. So, and obviously this is, in most people, you could use 1 twice a day, but I gave this larger dose so that you knew that you could go up to this amount, 2 twice a day. And some of you have actually gone up to 3 twice a day. So anything that you would like to add to this, Lynn, as far as the normal or ideal graph?
No, you're doing a fine job, Joseph.
All right. So, so the second finding, once we know what is normal and the proper ratios, then we want to get into what is imbalanced. And it's very important, because the heart sound recorder is not, it's not a device where you're diagnosing anything about the person's heart or their body. And remember, the heart is the window through which you can observe the entire body system and how it's responding to the environment, whether it's a product you have them on, whether it's something that the food that they're eating, or something in their lifestyle, too much alcohol, not enough sleep, no exercise. You can observe all of that through the heart sound recorder. So the second finding, outlines and declares the balance between the brain and the body, the autonomic nervous system. So we know that if we look at the normal graph, that this should be 2 to 1. The body, the heart must sleep, rest twice as long as it works. That's the way nature made it, and it is perfect. And we often comment that how wonderful our lives would be if we could rest and be on vacation twice as long as we work. Well, that is the rhythm of nature. It certainly is the rhythm of the heart. Lynn, would you like to say something about the using the calipers?
What I would like to say is that, you know, if people, a reminder that we have a recording, the basics recording on people using their heart sound recorder and the calipers and all of that, that if they'd like a copy of that, to email either yourself, or I'll put my email in the chat box as well, to get a copy of that recording using the calipers to measure the work to rest ratio. And that it's one of the things about being on Joseph's calls, because sometimes it could be hard to tell where you place the calipers and where's the appropriate work to rest ratio when we've got a very arrhythmatic graph. And so being on Joseph's webinars now twice a month is a great thing, because he can show you where the proper placement of some confusing graphs might be, and you get better experience with that. So that's what I would have to add.
Thank you. Excellent. And it's mainly you measure in the mitral valve, right? That's the main to see what that.
Yes.
With the calipers, yes. And you explain all of that in your
yes.
teachings.
And that
yes.
Sometimes you can see, though, a little bit of variance between the different valves. So you can always use your calipers to measure it in each of the valves and see that difference, if that's something of interest to you.
And on the calls, because we are a network of health practitioners, we talk about the medical terms that we're seeing, but we also are cautious because this is not a medical device. It is basically a low risk general wellness device. That's how the FDA sees it, and that's what protects you as a clinician. So I also teach you the terms that if you're reviewing this with a client or speaking about it in a lecture, that you should safely use so that you stay within the scope of your practice, which anyone in practice can use this. A massage therapist, a foot reflexologist, an acupuncturist, so a chiropractor, a nutritionist, anyone in clinical practice can use this because it is simply an observational tool and a very significant one, as I said. So the second observational finding has to do with the brain-body communication. If the autonomic nervous system is out of balance, it could be in tachycardia, which is here, which is fast heart rate. That's the term you should use. You're either fast, or the other extreme, bradycardia, where you're really slow. And here it is, you could see it. And there's reasons for the outcome of whether a person is too slow or too fast is pretty obvious in their life. Maybe they're having chest pains. They're too fast. They can't relax. They can't sleep. And it could be a number of other reasons in their body. But the main thing is to observe this and then apply the right nutrition. So the right nutrition for the accurate nutrition for this, again, listed in order of importance, is to use a potassium product that Standard Process has had for over 50 years, organically bound minerals, which puts the brakes on the autonomic nervous system, or Cataplex G as in gold, which is more your vasodilating, nerve relaxing side. And, or maybe it is an oxygen issue, and that is your Cataplex E2. Also, say you're using the organically bound minerals, even in very high amounts, and it's still not working, then you have to look to the endocrine system. Then you have to look to the brain, the pituitary in particular, hypothalamus, or other parts of the brain, but particularly the pituitary gland, because that is the one that is going to communicate with the vagus nerve in the body itself to communicate the balance and to release the hormones that are necessary to create that balance. So that it's if a person is too fast. If they're too slow, this person may not remember things. They may not be able to get going in the morning. They may just not be a very slow person. And for that, you would give the body's accelerator, the mineral that accelerates. So you have the mineral that breaks and the mineral that accelerates, which is phosphood liquid. And again, the B core, the other side of the B complex, the B1, B4 side. And again, endocrine or hypothalamus as well. So that basically is the autonomic finding. And again, the other part of that, when the body is not communicating well, you will get a lot of disturbance in the rest periods, in the systolic interval or rest period, or the diastolic rest period. This should be like the sea of glass, the calm on the ocean. If you've ever been in a turbulent ocean or a calm ocean, the heart, when it rests, when it sleeps, should be completely at rest. Otherwise, the efficiency of the heart diminishes. Then the person is tired, they're weak, and they're just not feeling right. So again, anything to do with rhythm, you want to think of the B1, B4 factor in the Cataplex B core. And as you could see in this individual that we worked with, not only does he have this disturbance here, but he has it all throughout in the systolic and the diastolic interval. So this is a sign of, it can be a sign of atrial flutter, but the key word you want to use for this is disturbance. You're observing disturbance in the rest periods. And this is the person that can never settle down. They're always, their legs are moving, they're biting their nails, they're twirling their hair, they're incessant talkers, they're that type A personality. And they always say to you in your clinical outcome, in your questioning, which is a good question to ask, do you feel like you are completely at ease when you're calm and relaxed? No, I can never. I'm jittery all the time, is a very common term that I've gotten. And so this observation is very significant, and that's why it's part of that number 2 observation. Anything else that I missed here, Lynn? And I'm not going to go into each product, the Orchex and the Nevaton, because you can learn about those in other classes that we're giving. So the third observational finding has to do with the integrity of the S1. And the simple thing to remember with this is the S1 must have 3 peaks. 3 peaks. Now, if we go back here to see the disturbance in this gentleman, he really has 1 good peak. Really, this could hardly be a peak. And then he does have the second one, but they're not vital. They're not substantial. And so this is why this is such a great graph to base everything off of. And as you can see, and by the way, the second sound, as long as it has 1 or 2 peaks, that's usually, Dr. Lee taught 2 peaks in the second sound. Now, you can see that this individual not only really didn't have any peaks, but look at also the duration of the S1. And that's very important to observe, that the duration should have this consolidated, like I use the analogy of the accordion. The accordion shouldn't be totally folded up, but almost. You see these tight intervals between the peaks and the height of the peaks. Now, in young children or someone that's very healthy, these 3 peaks are all up together, which is an excellent sign. But if you get an individual like this, then you know that their heart and their body is really struggling. So you can see that not only the width or the duration of the closure, because you want the heart to close snap shut, lub-dub. His heart is lub-dub. You see it's slamming shut. Here is where the ratio of height between the first and second sound is also off. Why is that? That's because the work cycle, and the work cycle is from the beginning part of the S1 to the very end of the S2. With a pause in between, that means blood is moving from the bottom part of the heart up through the semilunar valves, and then as the blood gets past that valve, the blood falls back and closes the valve. It's the same with the S1. The valves close because the blood is pushing back on the valve, closing it. Very simple. And you can study your heart anatomy on the heart. There are videos you can get so you can see it in your own mind. But this is the distance. This indicates the ejection fraction, the blood moving from the bottom part through the ventricles up through the semilunar valves. You can see that. And so if you have a high second sound, that means at some point that work cycle is failing. And the heart, the work cycle can either fail at the beginning, which we'll talk about in a minute, or it can fail at the end. And I use the analogy of watch people sit down in chairs, especially older people or people that aren't well. They start to sit down in the chair, and then at the very end, they fall into the chair. That's exactly what is happening with the heart. The heart should be able to sustain the work cycle all the way through, from the blood moving from the bottom up through past the semilunar valve, and then closing gently, gracefully. That is the efficient heart. Then the heart completely goes to sleep for a period of seconds. And so when you're going to, so where is the failure from a nutritional standpoint? Well, it happens over time. It can even happen after a physical event, car accident, an emotional event, somebody dying. Broken heart syndrome is a medical term. But this can happen very suddenly, or It can happen over time. And so how the valves close, what determines the closing of the valves, as I say, is the movement of the blood. But what is moving the blood? The contraction of the muscle. And here is why the protocol in its priority is to use cardiotrophin first. Cardiotrophin is the great heart strengthener and muscle strengthener throughout the body. And of course, the vitamin for any muscle tissue is vitamin E. Here you have it. The electrical part of this is a significant part as well, because it is the electrical innervation that also determines if you do have a strong muscle, it's intact, it's inherently has a good strength to it. That's good. That's what you want. But if the electrical current is off, then that's has to do with electrical innervation. And that's why cataplex B core is the third product in priority here. And cataplex C for collagen repair. Oftentimes valves get damaged. Valves don't work well. And that is a vitamin C. And remember, this isn't ascorbic acid, but natural vitamin C has a component known as the J factor that has to do with oxygen carrying capacity. So all of these products have a history, which I could teach an hour on each one, which I'm not going to do today, but all significant in these. But again, if you just said, Joe, I can only use 2 products here, it's fine. Use the cardiotrophin and the cataplex E. So, but if the constitution of that person, the diminishing of the constitution in that individual is electrical, then you must use the B as well. Anything that you wanted to say on that one, Lynn?
Yes, the word empty is misspelled.
Well, we'll fix all these.
I'll fix it.
Yeah, yes, right. And yes, and we'll get into more of the S1 integrity in a few minutes here. The next we want to look at is the second sound in the mitral, which I just went over. And that has to do, as I say, with how strong the heart is itself. And again, this is a bit of a repeat of what I just said, but observing the second sound is quite significant in the mitral and the tricuspid. So whether you're listening to the heart with a stethoscope or you're feeling the pulses in the wrist and observing those, or you're using the heart sound recorder, you want to make sure that the heart should be lub-dub, not lub-dub, lub-dub. That is a heart that is struggling. It's a heart that is collapsing at the end part of the work cycle. The fifth in our 10 has to do with the actual rhythm of the heart and whether the heart is actually the left and right side of the heart is beating synchronistically. Now you could say, well, Joe, it's just a thousandth of a second. Who cares? Well, it's not normal, number one. And number two, if you have any part of your body doing something, playing such a significant part 100,000 times a day and moving blood 100,000 miles with each beat, with each work cycle, then it is significant because the heart will get tired and wear out. And you can see in this individual, you could say, wow, Joe, great, S1, but then you see this splitting. So this is a lack of that accurate electrical impulse into this area. Remember, we're looking at 4 quadrants: mitral, tricuspid, aortic, and pulmonic. And so, but that left side of the heart and the right side should be beating in unison together. And when you see this pattern in a person, you know that that correction is highly significant to make the heart efficient. And you can see that this side of the closure is, see how weak it is? Because it's struggling. It's beginning to show that I'm getting tired of this lack of efficiency. And the constitution of the heart can break down over time very quickly. And you could say with this observation, which I haven't given you all of my observations, this can be the type of person that they can't make up their mind. They're divided. If the heart is divided, the person may reflect that. Can't decide what to do. And that's why correcting and allowing the heart to be as efficient as possible determines the outcome in the individual physically, mentally, and emotionally. Can't make up my mind. I don't know what to do. So very important observation. Now, again, correcting that is the cataplex B core. Vasculin has cardiotrophin. Cataplex B, they haven't put the B core in there yet, and cataplex C all in one. And as you can see from time to time, I add in an herb. Now, hawthorn is thought to be the nurse for the aging heart because it is a circulatory herb. It is not an herb that is specifically for the heart. It affects the heart as a secondary outcome, which has to do with increasing circulation, which is highly significant. So the 6th in this has to do with the mitral and tricuspid, which has to do with the, again, as we saw earlier on, the integrity of the S1. Now, and how do we know? Is we see the 3 peaks and what is to the left and what is to the right. So here it is. You can see that there is no distortion to the left and there's very little to the right. And you'll see that you have the 3 main peaks, but there may be another little peak here and another little peak here. That's fine. That's all normal. You're not going to see very few people in your time. If you're running hundreds of thousands of these like I have, you're not going to see people that are completely clean on each side. But if there is a disturbance after the closing, which you can see, this is, and it all, usually, most of the time, it looks like a tooth. So it's a very simple observation, and there's a little separation. Now you can see here that even though there is another one, there's no separation. So that's what I would consider normal. But you could see that gap here. This is indicative of a valve when it closes is leaking. So it's not always wise to tell your clients that, but know it yourself as a clinician or in your own body, that if you lose that valve integrity, then blood is leaking back into the ventricle when it shouldn't be. The ventricles, either the left or right side. Again, efficiency. And when you get this indication here, you know that the loss of integrity is an electrical issue. The heart muscle itself has weakened and it's pulled away from the valve. And the valve is made of collagen. The valve is not going to stretch like the muscle is stretching out. And when you see this, this can be indication in some of congestive heart failure down the road. As people age and they have this, this gets worse and worse. These can be called, medically, they can be called murmurs. And these murmurs, and those of you that have been on with me, you know, we have seen some huge murmurs, which you could actually hear with a stethoscope. I doubt you could hear this one. It's not too bad. But the reason I chose this one is because it's subtle. And this observation, number 6, is, they're all important, but this is crucial for the future of that person's body and their life. This can be corrected very quickly, some within hours. And then, of course, we want to bring in the vascular integrity too, to increase the blood flow by strengthening the blood vessels themselves. And here is your Cyruta Plus for vascular support and tone. There's a lot, even medically, findings for a prolapsed valve using magnesium. Now, we have, let me just mute everybody out here. We have the magnesium lactate, which was had for years. And someone keeps coming in here. Let me just mute everyone out. And now we have the Easy Mag, which was a more broader spectrum of the whole magnesium complex, of all the parts of the magnesium molecule, where most magnesium products tend to just have an isolate of the magnesium molecule. But either way, it will assist in that the repair, and very quickly, of any type of disturbance after the closure. Lynn, did you want to say anything about that? Were you the one coming in?
No, that wasn't me.
Okay. Now, to continue this observation is a loss of integrity on the left side, which is very different. Now, you could see in this S1, you can see that there is some weakness in those key 3 peaks. It's not too bad. And you can see a little bit here, but not bad at all. But the concern is here. This means if either the mitral tricuspid, if you're observing a disturbance on the left side, then this means that there is a narrowing of the valve. There's actually cholesterol beginning to form around the valve, narrowing. And as my colleague Mark Anderson says, it's significant because it is like the wide river going into the narrow river. And whenever you see that, we see that a lot. I walk every day by the river and see that, observe that. You can see that narrowing creates turbulence in the water. Well, this narrowing is literally creating that turbulence, and you can see it in the graph. So this means that we need vascular dilation, and we need to work on that cholesterol in the blood. And so remember, whenever you have cholesterol or any type of significant narrowing, whether it's in the larger blood vessels or the valves of the heart, know that it's not just cholesterol, but it's also calcium. So as Mark teaches, the calcium is the scaffolding, and then what fills in the scaffolding is the fat, is the cholesterol, the lipids, excessive lipids in the blood. So for the vascular dilation, of course, you'd use the vasodilating formulation, Cataplex G, nerve relaxation, and phosphatidylcholine, which is the inherent part of soybean lecithin. So phosphorus will balance out too much calcium in the blood. And always with that, you want to remember, we don't have it in here, but vitamin F, and actually Cyruta Plus, part of the vitamin C complex, helps the movement of calcium out of the blood into the tissue. And so remember that factor. And the phosphatidylcholine, the choline piece, emulsifies fat in the liver and in the blood. This is a very significant product for anyone over 50 years old. I think everyone should be on this. Of course, people don't want to take too many products, but when you see this, this needs to be corrected, because once that begins to build up, the body will keep laying layers and upon layer on that. And then you can get into some real challenges and difficulty.
And Joseph, this is Lynn. I would add the dosage didn't get put in there. So the soybean lecithin.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, right. So what do we usually say? 3 to 4 in the morning and 3 to 4 in the afternoon. Now, the reason I don't want to go into it too much, give an evening dose, which you could do, but you want to keep any phosphorus products away from calcium products. So the simple approach that I have used in my practice is to give it in the morning, and then sometime lunch, or if they're at work at lunch, when they get home from work, then you give them the calcium products in the evening, as long as it's 2 or 3 hours apart. Because if you put a lot of blood serum calcium into the system, the phosphorus could tend to neutralize the benefit of that calcium. So you want to leave time for the body to get that calcium into the tissues. And so that would be 3 or 4 in the morning, depending on the person's weight. And now, what do I mean by that? If the person is 150 pounds or under, you can use 3 in the morning and then 3 again midday to between lunch and dinner. If they're above 150, I would do 4 and 4. Some people go higher. Some people with high cholesterol, and we have discussed this. They will use 6 and 6. They'll use 6 3 times a day. So, but that's another discussion for another time. And then we have asynchronistic rhythms, as in this graph in number 7. Extra systoles, extra beats, or if the beat is off. Any rhythm at all is, of course, part of that global efficiency of the heart, in determining whether the constitution remains intact or they begin to lose that quality of constitution. So now the other thing that with this double second sound that you can see, that this can get into a rhythm where it's S1, S2, and S3. Now that is not a good sign. And if it continues after using nutrition, then these are the people you should refer out. And what is the term for that, Lynn? With the 3 beats?
The Kentucky rhythm?
Yes, right. Thank you. And so the Kentucky rhythm And the reason that that term was used was the trotting of a horse. Du-du-du, du-du-du. And that is a sign, if you look it up in medical terminology, that's the beginning sign of heart failure. So if they have this and it cannot be corrected, this is where wisdom as a clinician, that you need to make sure that they get to their cardiologist or to a cardiologist to have that looked at, because they are way down the road at that point to some other severe complications. But normally the cataplex B core, as I say, within hours. I've done it within minutes. And as long as it's correcting, you don't need to be of concern. But I would certainly get them back in 2 weeks to make sure that the correction, if you give them the B core in the office, wait a few minutes and it corrects, for sure, get them back in 2 weeks to make sure that the correction has held. Some people aren't consistent taking their supplements. So that should definitely be emphasized to them, that they must be true to the B1, B4 factor in their nutritional protocol, and get them off anything that's depleting the B vitamins, alcohol, bleach white flour, sugar, medications might need to be reviewed. Also with this, of course, you could use cardiotrophin and of course the cataplex C, because this is a sign again that the collagen matrix of the heart is beginning to break down, or they're not carrying oxygen, getting enough oxygen to that tissue.
And Joseph, I have a couple things to add if you go back to that slide.
Sure.
Is that this will often be a pattern where people can feel this.
Yes.
And can feel the irregularity.
Right.
And with the cataplex B core, with something like this, you might even want to consider, 2-3 times a day.
Yes.
Increasing that. And then a reminder, just because this happened to me as a practitioner, I found out that to remind people to chew the new cataplex B core. They're in a caplet, they're larger, which you would think that would be an indicator to them to chew it. But I've had found a client who is just swallowing it, and you get more bang for your buck if you chew it, and it's got a very nice taste.
Right. Excellent. And you can see too, thank you, Lynn, for that. Yes, very. Of course, we recommend that you at least break your supplements so that the body is tasting the supplements. Now, I understand a lot of clients aren't going to do that, but that is highly significant. And that's when you see the change right away. If you have them swallow these in your office and check them in 5 or 10 minutes, you're not going to see the correction. But if they chew it, as Lynn is saying, you'll see it almost immediately. And that's a good sign. But the last thing that I wanted to share with you is look at the S1, S2. There's your S3. Look at the S1, S2. Look at when the S1 comes back. Look how arrhythmic this person's heart is. And then there's nothing. You see this? You don't even, I'm sure the S1 is over here, but that is a huge pause, which leads us to our next, which is, are they too fast, too slow? Good. We can observe that mineral application there. But is the rhythm of their heart off because of loss of electrical innervation, as Dr. Lee said, electrical balance? And the electrical flow must be even, going to all 4 parts of the heart, quadrants, as I say. Now, the indications of this, and as Lynn was saying, people can tell you, man, I tell you, I can feel like my heart stops and starts again. Not a good sign. You can feel it in their pulses. Or sometimes they'll be beating normally. The heart will be at a beautiful rhythm. Then it will speed up. Maybe if they have too much caffeine, chocolate, alcohol, they speed up. Here it is. So you get all of these arrhythmic patterns. And of course, it's important that the right application for this is applied as well. And here again, and as you can see, you're only using a few products here. So adding the heart sound recorder into what you're already doing clinically is very easy. You're only using 5 or 6 products that you're adding in. So, and it is important too, that when you get a situation like this, sometimes we know it's an electrical issue, but added to that is circulation, and this is why we added Hawthorne in here, or the strength of the heart itself. When the heart gets weak, it will do this. And you can see that if you look here on this one, they really only have one peak, 1.5. And there's actually a little leakage there. Can you see that? Then they throw an extra impulse here. Then the rhythm gets off. Look at this. You could say, oh, this is good, Joe. You've got 2, but they need 3. Just like you need 2 beats to your heart in the normal work cycle, you need 3 peaks. So now you can see when the heart says, oops, there's the S1, there's no S2. Oh, and the heart's, oh, I got to get going. Look at the 3 peaks here. This is what I'm saying about the heart. The person can feel it. The heart inherently says, I got to get going here. I'm supposed to be beating. So here it is. This is a nice S1, S2, but then the next S1 comes in. There's not a 3rd peak, and it's coming in prematurely. You can see it. See this terrible arrhythmic pattern. S1, S2, S1, no S2, which is what we're going to look at next. So don't forget that if you're working with this type of a pattern where they're either missing beats or they're speeding up, slowing down, think of the cardiotrophin with that cataplex B core. Now, I had talked earlier about the work cycle itself, which is S1, blood moving to the upper part of the heart, closing S2, semi-lunar valves. And as I say, there are 2 parts to this work cycle. If the work cycle is diminished in the beginning, then you have lost. And there is great indication that the work cycle is failing at the front end. High second sound is the heart failing, work cycle failing at the back end. And this is highly significant. So this is a calcium and vitamin F issue. This can be, even if they have enough calcium in their blood, they don't have the delivery system for that mineral to get into the heart. I just want to read what Dr. Lee said about this. It's just one paragraph. If we don't have that vitamin F and the calcium, the contractions of the heart will not be completed. And in this case, at the beginning part, the contraction already starts to fail if there's a missing second sound. The contraction collapses before the complete cycle is finished. The flow of blood has been stimulated or promoted as it does normally. So when it comes back to close the valve, the contraction has tapered off and the velocity has been reduced. So there's no reaction. It's the reaction of the closing of the valve that makes the second sound. And so that when they're missing the second sound, that's at the beginning part of that closure. If there's a high second sound, that is the collapse at the very end of the closure. So here is where Cataplex F tablets is highly significant. I have to say that over the thousands of graphs that I've run in front of people and tested clients in my office, and I see all kinds of these indications. Sometimes I ask them when they have this, here's the first question I ask them. Do you have leg cramps? Oh, Joe, at night, I'm screaming at night. I'm working with a client right now. She wakes up in the night, her children almost called 911, screaming in the middle of the night with leg cramps. So I said, well, do you have any Cataplex F in your house? Tablets? No. Because that will immediately drive that calcium, deliver that calcium into that tissue. If you've ever had leg cramps, you know how significant that is. And so here is where the primary product is vitamin F. Most people have enough blood serum calcium. Now, as Dr. Lee, I just read, you need them both. But usually giving them vitamin F will bring this right back. If it doesn't, by the way, and Dr. Keppel taught me this, or found this in Dr. Lee's, you can use, we have Antranex here, which helps with liver support, and that's fine, for sure. Open up blood circulation, for sure. But here is what Dr. Lee said. The effect of vitamin P, here's Cyruta Plus, has been officially shown to be partly involved with this calcium diffusion. Vitamin F, vitamin P, and F seem to be partners. Well, there it is. And sorry, sorry about that. My phone was ringing. I was trying to shut it off. So remember this, that if you give someone the Cataplex F tablets and you give them the calcium lactate and they're still not responding, think of Cyruta Plus, which make a mental note, or you can write it into your PowerPoints if you print them out. So the next to the last is the high second sound in the aortic. Oh, Lynn, did you want to say anything about that? Did I cover all of that? No, I think I did.
Yes, and just know I've added the Cyruta Plus in for.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Yes.
And corrected the spellings along the way. So if anybody.
Well, this is a great review for all of us. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much.
You can email me and I'll send you the most up-to-date. Revised. Yeah.
So as we get to the part of the graph, the aortic, the high second sound, remember, this is a different meaning than in the ventricles, in the mitral, in the tricuspid. Here, when there's high second sound here, this significance has to do with the person's circulation. This relates to circulatory factors. Now, what does that mean? It means how well their metabolism is, the movement of their digestive system, but mainly their blood system. How good is it? Is their blood too thick? Is the blood viscosity balanced or imbalanced? That's what this is showing you. And so, again, the ratio holds true, should be 2-to-1. So this means that there is a problem with blood viscosity. The blood is too thick. And this is a very important finding in the sense that if this continues, then you know there's the possibility that you're going to get issues with occlusion in the arteries itself. And this is where if I get a person, and this is chronic, and I can't clear this with supplements, which I think everyone should be checked anyway, I make sure they get the Lifeline screening to see if they're starting to get narrowing, especially in the coronary arteries. And Lifeline screening is non-invasive. They use a Doppler to check your carotids. As the carotids go, so do the coronaries. This has been proven. So you don't have to get into any invasive medical testing unless they recommend it. And they will tell you how much you're occluded, how much narrowing there is. So that plaquing is a buildup of what I said earlier, calcium and fat. So if this does not resolve in a pretty short period of time, weeks, couple weeks, then you want to get them in. But in my opinion, we all should get checked with Lifeline screening. It's only less than $300. They check you for abdominal aneurysms, peripheral circulation. They even do blood work for you now, all for a nominal fee compared to what the information they give you. And then you can watch it. Is the occlusion going down year by year, or is it going up? So it's a great way to keep that, keep your awareness and observation of what's going on. But you can see it here too. You can follow the direction of care and application of these supplements. And remember, soybean lecithin is phosphatidylcholine. So it deals with fats and calcium. The other that John Courtney emphasized to us was you might have too much incomplete protein in the blood. There should be 22 amino acids in the blood. If the 8 essential are missing, then the other 14 just hang around, and that thickens the blood. And that is significant. So you want to give a product that provides the 8 essential that completes the amino acid fulfillment, the amino acid chain. The body will not use the amino acids to make new tissues, new cells, unless it has all 22 present. And we live in a society where we eat way too much cooked protein. So, and then of course, there's other products implicated here, and beta food certainly is the one, along with soybean lecithin, that is highly significant because if there's too much fat in the blood, which is, 70 to 90% of the cases, that's what it is. You have to, unless you thin that bile out and bring in more bile or have more bile available, you can't break down fat. The bile molecule must attach to the fat molecule to begin the process of breakdown to fatty acids or elimination. So highly significant. And of course, number 10, this is in the pulmonic, and this is highly significant. By the way, the implication of this also in my book, from my clinical experience, also relates to how good their thyroid function is. Now, that's more of an advanced finding, which maybe Lynn and I will put that together soon. But know this, if this is chronic, if you have high cholesterol, that these people have hypothyroidism. It's a key part. It's a key indication. But see how much you can tell just from these 10 findings, which really it's 9, because the first finding is observe the normal. And the last one is the high second sound in the pulmonic. Now, this is a fascinating one because it tells you a lot about whether there is a respiratory issue going on, sinus infection, any type of cold, flu, congestion, you'll see it. So you have to rule that out with the client. If you see a high second sound here, you say, have you been sick lately? You know, do you have asthma? So you have to work with that first. But most of the time, again, it is sign of adrenal stress and kidney as well. Because whenever you work with adrenals, in Chinese medicine, you're working with the kidney qi, the overall life vitality indicator of the body. So again, here are the products you use. Next time you check them in a few weeks, this should normalize that 2-to-1 ratio again. So here are the products in order of importance. And now there's a lot of products indicated here, but again, just start with Drenamin and Pneumotrophin, if that's what you're concerned. And maybe you don't know. Maybe you're like, well, they had a little sinus infection, but they've really not been sleeping, and they're stressed out about the everything going on with the virus that's rampant in this country. So maybe you would do both, the Pneumotrophin and the Drenamin. Drenamin has C in it. A quarter of it is C, by the way. So those are the 10 findings. Lynn, did you want to say anything else about this or anything else? Because we're right at our time here.
Yes, no, you've done a wonderful job.
Well, you put this together for me years ago, and now we're updating it for all of you. Now, remember, if you don't have a heart sound recorder, which I don't know how you can practice without it, how you can follow that journey of that client, or to be sure that the right herb, if you're giving them an herb or a homeopathic, whether that is accurate for them, or even a supplement, the heart will tell you. So that's highly important. But if you don't, work in cooperation with someone in your neighborhood, in your town, in your city, the next area over from you that has a heart sound recorder, especially with the clients that you're having a difficulty getting them to balance. If you cannot balance the heart, you cannot balance the body. It is your regulator. It's your gauge. It's your North Star. It's your compass to tell you whether the direction is accurate or not of your care. So I think I'll end with that. And Lynn, did you have any closing comments?
Well, I do. Again, I've just put my email address. I've already had half a dozen people or so ask for the typo corrected version. So if you'd like me to send it to you with the updated corrections and additions that we made from today, there's my email address, and I'll get that to you as we look at it another time. But and there haven't been any questions in the chat box. So
now remember that
chat is disabled.
It's disabled.
Oh, so well, you can unmute and ask questions, but there's one more thing I wanted to say before we get into questions. Two things. There's a lot that those of you who have been with me on my trainings and my teachings for years of advanced nature, but the purpose of today was to do the basics. Then we can get into that at another time for sure. So number one. Number two is yesterday I taught for Standard Process West for just their clients on how to create a protocol based on my book. So if any of you would like that, I can send you the recording and the notes, and we'll get that together in the next few days here and send that over to you. So just send me an email, or if you have Lynn's, you could do that. And we'll get that to you as well. So I'll be happy to take some questions. It's only 12:15 here.
Joseph, I have a question. This is
Sure.
Sue Massey.
Hey,
I'm
Sue.
sorry to see desiccated adrenal on the bottom of the list, but I can live with it. On number 10.
Well,
But-
you have made that product famous, and in all humility, when I looked it up, it's in the top 5 selling products of
I
standard
think I bought
process.
most of it.
So I
bought-
am truly humbled. And so, yeah, we should move that up. That's
Yes,
true.
but I'm sorry, I was just making a joke. Okay,
Yeah, I
but
know.
my question is on the slide before this, on page 33. I think it's a little confusing. I'm a little confused on number 9, right there, whoop, right there where it says soybean lecithin supports ability to process fats. And then you have calcium, and right under calcium, you have protofood.
I can tell you what the problem is
Oh,
Okay.
that somehow when it turned into a PDF, it put the 3 things that can make the blood too thick is calcium in the blood, fat, and incomplete protein.
Right.
And the 1, 2, and 3 is supposed to be over on the right-hand side. And so
okay.
that's why. And so as in this corrected version, I'm hoping to see, I don't know why it converted and came out this way. So that's just the problem.
Okay,
Yeah,
no
it's a-
problem. The
it's a
protofood
good-
is under the incomplete protein.
No, protofood is it's separate. So there's,
It should be under the
oh,
calcium.
yeah, no, it's
Yes.
under incomplete protein. You're
That's what I'm
right.
saying.
Yeah.
It's confusing. Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to make sure I'm not
Yeah,
missing.
right. And this should say supports ability to process fats and calcium out here. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
I have a question, comment. So often we see people who are dehydrated. And
Mm.
so I'm thinking that dehydration goes in that number 9 on page 33
I
also.
totally agree. Yes. Yeah.
And when it's not there and other people are looking at it, they're missing the dehydration.
Very, very
Water
good.
is not
Well,
a
point. Yeah.
processed product, but
Well, no, that's a point very well taken. And I have to say, with all of my clients, if they come to my office, of course, I'm not seeing anybody right now, but I have seen a few. But the minute they walk in the door, guess what I give them? Is a glass of, before I run a graph, I give them 4 to 6 ounces of water and I wait because I want them to sit there for 15 minutes before I take their blood pressure, because that medically is what is the most accurate. And your point is so excellent. That's a real pearl of wisdom. Be sure, and I think Lynn teaches this in her basic training, though we just didn't talk about it today. Be sure that they are well hydrated before you run this graph, because I have just given them, I have run graphs. This is how I learned this. I've run graphs and the S1s were terrible. And I said, have you had any water? Oh no, I haven't had water since, last night. I had coffee this morning. I'm like, no. So I give them the water and the S1s begin to correct. So that point is really well taken. Yes. Thank you for that.
Joseph, I have a question.
Sure.
I had a patient come in last week and I'm going to show you his graph next week. However, since the protocol and I did acupuncture on him, he has had night sweats and nightmares. I know it's liver, but can you, if I give you the protocol, can you kind of, his graph is exactly how you're describing. He pretty much has every finding on one or other valve. He also, when he left here, he didn't want to chew anymore. He couldn't stand the taste of his chew. Other than that, if I told you what he was on, could you kind of tell me
Can we look at that next Tuesday? I'd be happy to do it then. It's a little, I'm better if I'm so visual, I'm better if I see the protocol.
Okay, I'm just concerned because I don't know what, I don't want him, he's really not liking the nightmares and the night sweats. So can you give me?
Yeah,
kind of-
so that right away, night sweats is going to be AC carbamide.
Okay.
And nightmares. Those are for night terrors and night sweats. Right there is AC carbamide. Give him 3. How much does a gentleman weigh?
168.
Oh, so 3 at dinner and 3 before bed.
Okay.
And give him Antronex, 3 at dinner and 3, dilate that portal vein. And that should correct that the first night.
Does any beta food need to be applied to get it out or no?
No, just open up the blood flow through the liver and then give him, which Mark's going to teach you a lot about AC carbamide and night sweats and night terrors on Saturday. So
Thank you, Joseph.
you're welcome. And then I'll look at the rest of it later on with him. But make sure now before bed, he's not having a shot of vodka or bourbon or tequila, you know, make sure he's not drinking coffee. Make sure he's eating earlier in the evening. He should be eating between 3 and 5 instead of, 6 and 8 at night. So the body gets time before bed to digest and rest. And there's your Zypan, by the way.
Which he is on. Okay, thank you, Joseph.
All right.
Joseph, this is was that the AC carbamide and Antronex, and was there one more, or was there those two?
No, for the night sweats, I would mainly start with the AC carbamide and Antronex. Yeah. But, as she was saying, of course, maybe some beta food, you want to do some liver biliary work, but let's start with that, see if it corrects it. Plus his pattern of habit, whether he's really honoring the circadian rhythm and what to do about that, which is in the back of my book, by the way. So this is a great prelude to February, when I start teaching on, I think it's the 7th, February is going to be the 4th, that Thursday, because I'm going to do some of the cardiovascular protocols from my book, Adjuvant Protocols for Healing. And that's Thursday, February the 4th. So thank you all for being on.
Joseph, I have a real quick question.
Sure.
Just on Saturday, is that going to be recorded because I'm working? And
It is going to be recorded, but you still should register.
Well, right. And so I
Yeah.
can get the notes and the recording?
Right. That's right.
Okay. Okay. And how can I get recordings of your old adjunctive ones?
So I have created a YouTube channel, but my technician got mono. He got so he's had the Epstein-Barr virus, which we've been working with him with. So he's been in bed. So it's almost done. We just have to load the various recordings and the notes onto the YouTube channel, and then I'll give you a link to that. So, and I apologize. It's just, again, the challengings of finding the right people to help you, because I am very technologically inept. So
Okay.
We
thank you so much.
without these people like Lynn and Monica and others, Sarah, that have helped me, you wouldn't have it. So our gratitude to them for sure. So
Okay. Thank you so much.
Hi, Joseph. This is Hasso. Quick question. I had to get off for a client. How do we plug into the Saturday event?
So you would just, you're going to register through, is it Saline River Press? Lynn, that you registered?
No, it's through Standard Process West.
Oh, standardprocesswest.com. And you'll see the,
Okay, great. Thank
And
you.
go to the events page, click on the January 23rd, and it will lead you to the registration page. Also, I believe you can connect to it from your invite, Joseph. The little.
oh yes,
you
my
put on there, I
invite
think
has it on there and it has a link. Yes.
At the top of today's
Right.
invite.
Yeah, if you have any trouble, send me a text, but you should be able to just link in through that and register. Yes. Well, thank you all. I'll be on with you silently on Saturday with Mark Anderson and Dr. Lowell Keppel, and we'll look forward to being with you then. Blessings to you all, as always.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph.